What's up, y'all? I'm Josh from Louisiana, and I want to thank you for tuning in to my recap of Feud Capote vs. the Swans. In the penultimate episode, Beautiful Babe, we see just how much Truman and Babe meant to each other. And that's all I'm going to say for now, because as a reminder to everyone, this is a recap in which I will be going through all of the key events of the episode. So if you haven't watched yet, be aware that there are spoilers ahead. Hope y'all enjoy. Now let's dive in. So we all knew this moment would come, and honestly, I'm glad they're not ending on this note. But Babe is in her final days. Her doctors told her that there is no longer any hope, and it's time for her to begin making final arrangements. But Bill, of course, wants nothing of it. He's doing everything he can to keep Babe fighting, recommending that she try new medications to combat her cancer, scolding her for smoking, but all this does is drive Babe into a fury. She's done. She's done fighting. She's done with the apology gifts from Bill that he's given her to atone for his transgressions. All she wants is quiet and solitude and to have her children around her. However, her daughter Kate refuses to even speak with her, but more on that later. Then we're at our usual ladies' luncheon with Babe, Slim, Lee, and CZ, and we continue to see Babe's heart open up for Truman. She asks CZ how he's doing and says that she feels ridiculous for letting this go on as it has. She's now feeling, I believe, because she knows she's nearing the end, that she should have just laughed off the entire Lacote Basque expose. And CZ in turn says that she thinks Babe only feels like she needed to be angry with him because of Slim, Lee, and Bill. And honestly, at this point, Babe is just sick of everyone's shit. Because if they had laughed it off, Truman would be sitting there with them. But as the frustration dies down, Babe begins talking about an extravagant party she wants to throw, going through every detail, including the guest list. When Slim asks when Babe wants to have this party, Babe reveals that it will in fact be her funeral. And she breaks the news that she is in her final days. Babe then returns home and hears Bill on the phone in the other room with Kate. She hurries to her bedroom and quietly picks up the phone, only to hear that her daughter wants nothing to do with her, saying, "The Sphinx doesn't need anything from me. Maybe when you hear her death rattle." And while this certainly was harsh, apparently Babe and Bill had a strained relationship with all of their children. While the two were out building this prestigious life, being the center of society, their children were being raised by nannies. The kids didn't even share space with their parents at their Long Island home. Babe was even quoted saying there were too many Christmas gifts to compensate for all of the guilt. And I'm sure at the end she really regretted having that distance with all of them. When Babe goes to her house on Long Island, she really begins to reflect and lament over all the regret she has. As she walks the grounds, chats with her staff, and continues to polish the perfect facade that is her life, she says, "You cannot have eternity, nor can you own perfection. You merely borrow it with interest. My world is suffused with beauty. I only wish I had been able to see how much of it there was." And I think the most beautiful part of this scene was how it gave us all a moment to reflect. I think a lot of us, myself for sure, try to go through life making everything perfect, or at least trying to, and we don't always stop to look at how beautiful our lives actually are. We're always looking for the next great job, the next beautiful apartment, or rushing to find the perfect mate, while sometimes we just need to settle and embrace the blessings around us. Then Babe has a vision. She's lying in bed as Truman sits a few steps away from her, reading her diary. Elated to see him, they immediately fall back into the warmth and witty banter they had before their fallout. As they dress for dinner and fireworks, Babe tells Truman that he is one of her top 3. She goes on to explain that your top 3 are the people that you smash into bits with, get all mixed up, and never come apart. And not to joke, but I feel that I've definitely had people smash me into bits, but I'm certainly not mixed up with them anymore. And I assure you, we definitely did come apart. But anyways, then they come into the bathroom and there's this huge, beautiful swan in the bathtub. She asks Truman if she's dead, to which he responds that she is in fact in her final hour. Worried that she isn't ready, Truman tells her, "We can wait here forever until you are." And then we cut to Babe as she lay dying in bed. At the last moment, her daughter Kate rushes to her side, and Truman's last words are, "And they looked and they saw what they had not seen before, that she was beautiful." And with that, Babe dies. Next, we're in Truman's apartment as CZ frantically tries to wake him. The first words out of his mouth are, "Babe's dead." CZ tries to console him, but Truman rushes out of bed saying he has to get to work on Babe's eulogy. Apparently, he had been working on it for some time, but CZ begrudgingly tells him that not only is Bill not allowing him at the funeral, there will be guards there that are prepared to stop Truman and hurt him. Truman obviously becomes unglued and says that he has to be there. It's what Babe would have wanted. But though CZ made quite the case for him, there would be no option for him to be there. Then we have Babe's funeral. We don't get too much of this other than seeing how perfectly everything was prepared and one final scene with our remaining Swans. They talk about how every detail is just as Babe would have wanted it, how Bill Paley is still rich and now back on the market, and cut to Bill talking to a gaggle of women and Lee saying that she feels sorry for whoever he chooses because being Bill's woman is not for the faint of heart. CZ says that if Truman were there, he'd have a delicious quip that he'd throw like a lawn dart and hit a bullseye. But what shocked me the most was Slim saying that he should have come. I mean, I certainly didn't see that coming, but she says that it's the final curtain, so he should take his final bow. CZ then goes on to say that he will immortalize them all for better or for worse, referring, of course, to answered prayers. He told CZ that Babe's death is the final chapter, and after that, he can die. And the shocks from Slim just keep coming. She says, how about not dying? How about thriving? It's not that hard. I mean, are we seeing a little sympathy from Slim? But anyways, the ladies make futile attempts to arrange plans to see each other, but with Babe gone, the glue that held them all together is no more. Then we have Truman on Stanley Siegel's show. And Truman is not only drunk, he is completely annihilated, making a public spectacle of himself. And all I've got to say is that Tom Hollander truly outdid himself with this scene. Just take a look at the actual interview with Truman on Stanley Siegel's show.
Can I ask you some serious questions?
Sure, you can go right in.
right.
I feel perfectly fine.
Have you been drinking?
You mean very lately?
You have had a history of alcoholism. Millions of people out there have also had the same problem.
Alcohol isn't the least of it. I mean, that's the Joker in the car.
Played to perfection. Truman goes on to say that if he doesn't stop with the drugs or alcohol, he will end up killing himself without meaning to. And that's just what happens. The next scene, Truman is in a hospital bed with no concept of time or even where he is. He thinks he needs to get ready for Babe's funeral that took place weeks prior. Apparently, he blacked out on Stanley's show and had to be rushed to the hospital. And Jack's sitting there, and you can see that he's just at the end of his rope. Truman says that he's almost done with answered prayers, and it's a love letter to Babe. Jack, of course, snaps back at him, saying that there never was any version of answered prayers, that all he has is abandoned pages and a few lines. As Jack goes to leave, Truman begs him to stay, saying that Jack and Joanne are the only two people he has left. But honestly, I think at this point, Jack is truly just done. In our final scene, Truman is once again lying in bed, not knowing where he is, what's going on, or who he's around. Apparently, he was so inebriated that he fell into Joanne's pool and almost drowned. Joanne pulls him out and brings him to bed, where you can see he's in his final moments. He starts babbling about different things, talking about going to China, not making any sense. And even in this state, he's asking Joanne to give him another drink. Joanne refuses and goes to grab him a soda. While doing so, she calls 911 and hangs up the phone. And I believe at this moment, Joanne knew there was no longer any hope for him, and she just began to let him go in peace. And as Truman begins to pass, just as Babe had visions of him, he has visions of Babe. Once again, they fall back into their warmth and witty banter, and Babe gently brings Truman to the other side. Joanne calls Jack to tell him the news, saying that his last words were, "Mother, Mama," and then he just said, "Beautiful Babe." We've had several heartbreaking episodes, but this one obviously was the kicker. You've got Babe, who lived this life of perfection that just seemed to be more exhausting than enjoyable. Then you've got Truman, who just continued to fall deeper and deeper into despair and addiction. I don't know, I'm hoping the final episode shows us more of the good sides of the relationship Truman had with his Swans. I mean, I really just wanted to end on a happy note, even though it was all tragedy. But what are y'all's thoughts? I mean, do you think Babe's life of perfection was really just a prison? Do you think she and Truman actually were soulmates in some sense? And why do you think Joanne and Jack were the only two left? I mean, what happened to CZ? She seemed like she stuck by his side for better or for worse. Anyways, let me know your comments down below, and I'll be seeing y'all next week for the season finale.